Hello, everybody. Welcome to, I don't know if it's my podcast, but it is a podcast that we do. I think we're just calling it Taboo for now, but maybe this will lead into a regular podcast for us. Anyway, so welcome to Shoreline's podcast, Taboo, where we are going to talk about some taboo subjects. Glad that you could join us, and I actually have a couple of guests with me today. I've got my lovely wife of 40 years. That's how long we've been married.
It's crazy.
Pastor Darlene Partin. And then over here, we have one of the ministers in our church, Jessica Holzapple.
I was wondering if you were going to say my actual last name.
Well, because you thought I might say pineapple.
Yeah.
Because my kids grew up watching Doug. Did you watch Doug?
We did.
And what was her name on?
Oh, I don't even know.
It was something pineapple. Remember? His friend
I can't remember
on the show
name.
Doug on Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
All right, maybe one of our producers can look it up for us real quick. Who was Patty? Was it Patty Pineapple?
No.
Anyway, I might be wrong. So welcome. How are you all doing? You
Great.
guys, thanks for being here with
Doing
us.
good.
So this episode is gonna be talking about women, not just in ministry, but women in leadership in ministry. I've been going through YouTube and some podcasts, and it is definitely a discussed topic out there. And so I felt like we needed to talk about it because we have women in ministry. We have ordained pastors in ministry that are women. And some people might be wondering, well, I thought that was unbiblical, or I thought that you weren't supposed to do that. Obviously, we believe in that, so I wanted to kind of break that down for us today, and maybe not be so much a debate, but more of why we believe what we believe, or why we do what we do, and this is what we believe. So, but first, I'd like to hear you guys' story, because both of y'all are obviously in ministry. Just give us a little bit of a story of how you got into ministry.
Go ahead.
You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
I'll go first since I went into ministry first.
There you go.
I really got passionate about working with young people when we had an opportunity to be involved in youth ministry at a church that we were attending right after you had given your life to Jesus.
That was pretty quickly, too.
Yeah, it was. I think it was maybe 2 months after we started attending church together, you volunteered us to be involved in a big event. So we went to this big event.
Yes.
And we went to Wet n Wild and Pizza Hut, I think. And
Which I used to call
happy
Tush
to
Gardens.
Do it. Yes, you did.
There in Orlando.
You did. And let me just preface this. We were young. I think I might have been
24. I was 24.
Then I was probably 21.
Yep.
And we had been working on the beach in our hometown, and we always had teenagers that worked for us. And for whatever reason, there was always a lot of teenagers that wanted to work for us.
Yeah.
So we already kind of had that as a part of our life. And so it was easy to transition when we got involved in church to say, hey, yeah, we'll help with the youth ministry, because it was a young, growing church. And I think we went to one event, and when we were done, we're like, that was awesome. But we really didn't know much about what that would take to continue to volunteer with them. And there was some other leaders at the time that were involved. But as the church was going so quickly, our pastor had a conversation with us and was like, hey, do you guys think you could just meet with the teens? You seem, you're young. You seem to be like
hip and cool.
We had one baby at the time. We had the time to do it. And so we actually shifted our focus, which was really at the time sailing and competing in sailing
And surfing.
and then just decided to move that, or we'll just take our time and put it into young people. It was about a year into that we were just completely hooked, and we had attended a youth conference that I just remember feeling I have to do this for the rest of my life. I have to do this for the rest of my life. But I didn't have any context really of what that was, and I had the freedom to do it because our pastors did. They just let us. They were like, hey, keep spending time with the kids, and they were seeing fruit.
Yeah, maybe we were just too dumb to know that we weren't supposed to.
Yeah.
According to some people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why we weren't supposed to, but I feel like that's probably how things were in the early church. God transforms your life, and you start to follow him, and he leads your life. You walk in that path, and the next thing you know, there's opportunity before you. And it was like, I honestly felt like I couldn't help myself.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like how we got started.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And Jessica, you probably don't go back as long as she does, but I do remember where you started. So, but I love your story, because your story is my story. It's a trophy for my story.
Do you like being a trophy? That's so weird.
You're a trophy wife,
At least he
just
stopped
not
saying
my
he was
wife.
going to mount us above his fireplace. He said that for a good 3 years.
I don't even remember
Oh, I
that,
do.
but I'm not surprised.
He would
Actually-
say it from any platform. Like they're the type of people you just want to mount them on your fireplace. I was like, stop saying that.
Yeah, and go, see what we did? Or what
This
God
is
did?
Awkward.
I actually had my first pastor call me that too, so that was like kind of why it stuck. But I only say that because you were the people we had in mind when we designed Shoreline, and we've watched you go through all the steps to where now you and your husband are both in ministry. Maybe not vocationally, but you guys are in ministry. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would say I ended up in ministry by accident, like in the sense of like it wasn't a part of my plan. It wasn't something I was going to school for. It wasn't something I had aspired to be. It was basically you guys calling out the potential that you saw in me and me being available to say yes. So like I made myself available to volunteer. I love our community. I love serving in our community. So that was easy for me. And I wasn't sure initially about the whole Jesus thing, but then that started to come into alignment. And I was like, oh, well, I get this and I love this. And that encouraged me to invite and love more people. So it's just kind of the fruit of that passion for Jesus was like, well, now I definitely want to serve our community more. And so walking that out, I just started hanging out more and more. God called me home for, whatever reasons, and that's a story in itself, but I ended up having the opportunity to be home with our firstborn for a little bit.
I was confused about God calling you home when you said that.
Yeah, in the
I thought
sense
you were about to
yeah,
die.
I meant like
He called me home from the workplace.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he called me home
not
from the workplace.
not to heaven.
Nope.
I was like, I was going to ask. That was going to be the next question. What is heaven like?
Churchy statement, but no. From the real world view, he called me home from the workplace, and I didn't really know what to do. I had a friend call me out at one point. She's like, you are the worst not stay at home mom, because I just couldn't do it. I loved it, but I would be like wearing my kid, but I'd be painting the community center. I'd be, I didn't stay at home very often. And I know a lot of moms who don't, but you know what I mean? Like it was just, she laughed because I'd stayed at home, but I really just was never home. I was always serving our community. And at one point, I remember the conversation, Pastor Darlene came up and Eric wasn't even here. Pastor Eric wasn't here. And she's like, so Eric and I were talking and we want to start like because I was coming to staff at that point, wearing a baby still. Like Louis grew up in these walls, my son, wearing him in staff meetings and all kinds of stuff. And it was just an easy place to step in and serve and add value and purpose to something that, lit me on fire. So you guys offered to start paying me for something that I was already doing. And I remember telling you no at first. And you just kind of smirked at me because we were still getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And I am such a processor that I was like,
yes, you
but
are.
God was so intentional in saying, stay home with your kids, that I was like, I need to talk to my husband and I need to talk to God, because I don't know if I'm ready to step into something that I like. For volunteering, you kind of always have that wiggle room to say no, but versus taking the commitment of, yes, as a job and working for the church was definitely nothing I had planned. But it happened, and that was 2018. So it's been a little bit now.
It has been a little bit.
And you didn't even bring in all the, like Imani Malele, Night to Shine, so many directions that you helped steer our church toward. Global missions and even local, community outreach, doing things like that. It's been super powerful. But actually, you said something that kind of is very resembles our life in that you just did what was driving your heart.
Yes.
I didn't go. None of us got into ministry because we thought we wanted a position or I want to be a pastor. We just had a passion for helping teenagers navigate what they were navigating, which was, this is the 80s. And then as you get into it, you look back and you go, let me ask you if this happened. After you get into it, did you look back and realize that even before you met Christ, that God had kind of been setting you up for that?
Absolutely.
That it was
it's
just
cool to look back on and see where he kind of sprinkled keeping me out of circumstances that I could have been in, and seeing where kids I grew up, or, adults that I grew up with, and where they've landed and what's happened. It's like I've seen his hand on my life before I even knew him. I can see the pursuit of how he wired me, because I always wanted to be a part. I always wanted to volunteer. Even my sorority in college, it was like I was over rituals and stuff, but then I would serve like crazy. Like, and it's so funny because that was like college and I didn't know Jesus yet. And it was all these things that were in me that I thought were so neat and special, but then just walking it out with what I had available to me in that season, which is crazy.
This could be, I don't want to get into a serving message, but this is a serving talk. This could be a serving talk.
Yeah.
Because I say all the time is that many times you find your calling or figure out your purpose once you step in and start doing things, because
That's
what you
right.
volunteer for is going to be out of passion.
Yeah.
You know, and you did it because maybe you didn't know otherwise. Why wouldn't I do this? Why wouldn't I help? Why wouldn't I work with teenagers? I have a passion for it. But as you get older, you look back and go, oh, this was God working in me even before I even knew it.
Yeah.
So now you are a licensed minister.
I am.
You're an ordained minister or ordained pastor. So now it's not just volunteering. It's become part of your life. Part of you're fulfilling your calling. So the question is, in fact, when you guys talk about this, as we talk about it, it actually reminds me of some of the women who ministered with Jesus. And that, here you are in a culture that is, women don't have rights. They don't own property. They're actually, if you go, even in the Jewish culture today, you go over there and they have separate, down at the temple wall and in the synagogues, women are separated from men. They don't have all the rights and the dignity that men do. But yet you see so many women that didn't care and stepped out, almost like what you're talking about. What sticks out to you with women that Jesus ministered to or with? And I say with because there was a lot of women that supported Jesus' ministry.
There are a lot, and I'm thinking about it right now as you were saying that. Like who probably sticks out? I feel like Priscilla really sticks out to me.
Well, that's with the Apostle Paul.
Yes.
Well, I was talking about Jesus. I want to start with Jesus
ministry.
first,
Okay.
because I feel like there's three things we need to talk about. Because I think we need to understand Jesus' heart. Because I have a hard time reconciling Jesus keeping women out of ministry the way Paul said to Timothy, "I don't allow a woman to teach." But then when I look at Jesus' life, I can't reconcile those two things. So I want to look at the heart of what we believe the heart of Jesus was.
Right.
So then we'll get to the address Paul's things. So
Do you want women he's connected with, or do you want like that he interacted with later on in life,
Well,
just from the beginning? Like, because I think to his mom,
Yeah.
the way he honored his mom, and you look at a cultural context of once a man became a man, mom wasn't necessarily the nurturer, the take care of person, but Jesus honored his mother in such a way that was, we look at it now as an example of honoring your mother, because technically, if we look at it from the standpoint of that era and that time frame, he didn't have to listen to her. He didn't have to take her word. He didn't have to
It's really good,
culturally.
Jessica.
yeah, when she goes, "Hey,
Go
what
do
he
this.
says."
Well, yeah. Well, I
And
think
he wasn't ready yet, but he trusted his mother, and that's something that wasn't necessarily culturally.
Oh
a thing.
yeah, I think he sought wisdom from his mom, and also I think placed value on his mom that what she had to say was important, and that she was aware enough of what was going on that she could give some really good input, and also probably had the spiritual insight. You
Yeah.
know. And
look what she went through.
yeah.
To have him.
Oh yeah.
Like, hello.
absolutely. And that's the thing. I think it was her experience.
Yes.
The fact that the way she had to walk through faith to even be pregnant without,
There's just so
without
much
a
to it.
husband
Yeah.
and do that by faith and have conversation with family and tell them that. And yeah, it's shocking actually.
Yeah,
But
just the fact that Jesus chose a woman to be the mother of Jesus. That's so
shocking,
powerful.
isn't it, that he chose a woman to be the mother? We love you.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
saying some obvious things here, but
Yeah.
we've said it before. The church, Jesus was the first to elevate the dignity of women, of a lot of people, but he definitely elevated the dignity of
Absolutely.
women. What are some examples? Do you think that?
Of elevating the dignity of women.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's so funny that you brought up Mary, his mom,
Yeah.
just because I honestly hadn't even thought of that. I know that's crazy, but I don't have a
Yeah.
Catholic background, so I just didn't think of it. But I think it was a beautiful picture and a beautiful start. I think Mary Magdalene.
Yes.
I think Mary and Martha,
Yeah.
because of how involved they were.
Yep.
Just
Mary Magdalene and the other women were the first to witness his
Yeah.
resurrection.
Yes.
And why is that significant? Is because women,
Well,
their testimony was not used in courts.
Yeah,
then.
I mean,
you needed a men to testify.
well, even when they came back, they're like, "No, you're crazy."
Yes.
And they're like,
And-
"No, we saw
No,
what we
really,
saw
for real.
Here, and the
Like-
disciples were like, "Let the men go look. We'll take care of this." Right? That's what they did.
Yeah.
But why would? I don't know if it was on purpose with Jesus, but it does then go back to the passion that the women had. They're going to be there first thing in the morning. They're going to be there early to
They know
minister.
where things are. I just
I
got
know,
this.
right?
I
Looking
just
in the
got this
fridge.
picture
Where's
of
the
like
spices
yes.
and the oil?
When
It's
you're
right
like-
there in front of you.
When you go and look in the fridge, Eric, I'm
Yes.
telling you, it really is in there.
It's
It was kind of like that. I hate comparing
I
Jesus
thought that
to
same
things that are
picture
in
when
the
he said
fridge,
it,
but
too.
yeah, it was like, no, actually, how cool is that though? When you think about that, he allowed that would have been so different than the cultural norms, and then the guys, because it had to be confirmed in the men as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That oh no, this was valuable. They knew what they were talking about. Like, and then when you go in and you realize, and we're going to probably talk about this later, but just in Acts chapter 2, how Jesus, he leveled the playing field.
Acts chapter 2, Jesus leveled the playing field.
Well, no, the Holy Spirit did.
Yes.
Leveled the playing field, but in Acts chapter 1, he told them the Holy Spirit's coming. And then in Acts chapter 2, you see that the playing field is leveled, and that whole verse out of Joel chapter 2.
There you go. Come on, that's what I was thinking of too.
That your sons and daughters will prophesy. And it was like, okay, this is it,
Yeah.
I mean, so for them to be able to see him first when he came out of the tomb, that was a great confirmation, or like almost like a what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, confirmation.
It was a confirmation before that even happened. He was like almost setting up their hearts.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was going to do something great, and he was going to use men, and he was going to use women, and he was going to use sons, and he was going to use daughters.
Yeah.
You
Daughters. What stands out to you? What's significant to you in Jesus' ministry with women or to women?
Well, I mean, I think of the early women followers who had to just the same follow.
Yes.
They weren't sure. They didn't have stories to go off of who Jesus was. They had to believe, and they had to have the faith to walk away and follow. And so that, I feel, as a woman in that time frame when everything that you have is associated with the man in your life, or the person that is over you, or your father, any kind of male influence, it's like to go leave everything that is culturally normal and follow, is just a step of faith to believe that he is who he says he is. And so that was always interesting to me, for sure. But if I'm going to look at it, like, just fast forwarding, I would definitely say the woman at the well kind of stands out to me
My
a
favorite.
whole bunch.
Yes.
A whole bunch. 'Cause-
So significant because it was longest single conversation in the Bible that Jesus had with anyone one-on-one.
Yeah.
Recorded with a woman, and not only she was a woman, she was a Samaritan woman. They didn't have anything to do with him. And
Yes.
she was a woman who wasn't of great reputation when you go to the well at
Yeah.
noon instead of in the cool of the day. It's because you
Yeah.
don't want to be ostracized around the other women. But then what happened with that interaction? I mean, what happened? We see all the men of the city getting saved.
Yeah.
A revival happening because of that one woman. And Jesus went out of his, it looks like from scripture he went purposely through Samaria to have that conversation, with a woman.
Yeah.
Now imagine the revival that happened in that city because all those men, remember what they said? They said, "We believed you because of what you said, but now we have met him and we believe because we've seen him and we've experienced him."
Yeah.
What other significant moments you think there is? I can think of a couple, but I'm just trying to give you guys time to talk because I could take this whole thing over.
You could. I know you're.
Well, I want to sit at the well for a moment because it was,
Good.
yes, it's just the part of it being the longest conversation, but it's also painting that picture of the shame that woman was carrying
Yes.
Yeah.
and what she was like. She knew that she just felt yuck, and she was done being judged, and she was done. And she even I liked the sass that she gave Jesus at the well. Like, well, what do you have to say about it? Like, what else? I've heard it all. Like, go ahead, lay into me about what I've done.
Yeah.
And he met her with truth, and he met her with grace.
Truth and grace.
That is just awesome because that was what left an impact with her. Like she was so shame-filled, and he met her where she was at, and he loved her through it, but he didn't shy away from calling her out in the sense of, calling her up and saying, I know who you are, but this is who you're called to be, kind of thing.
I love how his transformation in our lives, it does connect with the fact that we all desire to have purpose. And when our lives are transformed and you begin to see your purpose, you cannot help but walk towards that calling or that purpose. So the fact that in that transformation, he used a woman that nobody would have expected.
Yeah.
But it was because she was transformed. And I think that that's what the key is. It's when God transforms your life, you're a completely different person. And it doesn't matter if you're a man, you're a woman, you're a young person. I mean, honestly, like right now, I love seeing all the young people that have their own platforms, and there might be 13-year-old boys that are preaching the gospel. I don't know if you've seen a lot of that, but I just love it. But it doesn't matter. It's all about what God has done in your life, and he will take anything. He'll use anything to bring glory to him and for people to know him, for people to be a part of his mission. I just don't see how it would matter whether you were a woman or a man, male or female. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So he elevated the dignity of women. We see that Mary Magdalene and the other women were the first to see his empty tomb. We see the Samaritan woman that he has that long conversation with. You also talk, I don't know if someone brought up the woman caught in adultery, which that was, to me, he dignified her. Again, grace and truth. Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. There's a lot of other instances. The woman with the issue of blood, he calls her daughter. That was she was socially constrained from being in
there.
that crowd.
Right.
And what did Jesus do? He not only didn't send her away, but he affirmed her and then said, look at this person's faith, and used her as an example
and
of
the
faith.
boldness of her to reach out, to believe enough that if I just touch him, if I just reach out and step out into this crowd that I've been avoiding, step out into this group of people that I can so easily hide from and sit in my room and feel bad for myself.
Yes.
She took that step out of that space to be bold in her faith, to reach out and believe that just the touch of his robe would heal her.
Oh, it reminds me of a song. Like the woman with the issue of blood.
Nobody knows that song.
I don't know that song.
All the old people do.
I'm okay. I don't know that song.
Yeah, it's okay.
We press it. Sorry.
It's okay.
So you
cut that.
I'm sure it's a great song.
No, you don't have to cut that. You need some humor in here. So you have that. But one of the things the story that I love is the woman who anointed his feet in Bethany, because he totally defends her to the Pharisees, which he says, you didn't even do anything for me, and this woman hasn't stopped washing my feet with her tears and anointing me with oil. But the other thing I love about it was he didn't just defend her, but he says, this story shall be told wherever the gospel is preached. This shall be, and it's in all of the gospels. And to me, it wasn't just, hey, woman, your faith has made you whole, or hey, neither do I condemn you. But it was, this woman is doing ministry and you're criticizing her, and I'm going to defend her.
Yeah, I'm loving everything that we've brought up so far, that we really, because we haven't talked previously, but just seeing how he set a precedence even before the church was birthed of breaking barriers with women. He broke every barrier with women and placed value on them, like in a pretty, very, very specific ways.
So he was shaking some paradigms.
He definitely
because
was.
In the Jewish culture, it was shaking paradigms, but even in just the normal Judeo-Christian, Roman, Greco culture, women were not, didn't have places of authority. They weren't teachers, that kind of thing. And so he definitely elevated the dignity. That's why I have a hard time reconciling with the things that people pull out and say, well, this is why women shouldn't be in ministry.
Right.
Is because I just don't see the heart of Jesus in it. Because we say this again all the time. I think I brought this up earlier. So a lot of people it's more important to them to be biblical than to be Christ-like. Now, we do need to be biblical, but there are some things in the Bible, especially the Old Testament, but even some in the New Testament, that aren't really relevant for us today. And I know that you take that out of context and people are like, oh, no, we believe all Scripture is God-breathed. But there are some things definitely in the Old Testament that are cultural that aren't relevant for us today, but there are things in the New Testament that are cultural. And I think that's what we're dealing with. So Jesus elevates the dignity, and now along comes the Apostle Paul. And we see throughout the book of Acts, there wasn't just the women who, they washed his clothes or fed him or took care of him. There was women that he partnered with in ministry in these cities as he went traveling around the Mediterranean, establishing churches.
I think it was because they were capable and they were available.
Yeah.
And they were willing to, actually that was probably a very difficult thing to get involved in, because of their culture already. And being Jews, whoever were Jews, that, just to take that opportunity was probably a scary thing to do. It was risky.
Yeah.
But they were available. They were there. They understood. They knew who Jesus was. They were impacted.
Do you ever think, because I see this in church a lot, our staff, I think we have more women on staff than we have men. You see a lot, I'm not sure I would, but it seems that way. Could be more. Maybe one of our producers here will count our staffs out.
I feel like it's a 50-50 split these days.
It could be a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
But you see a lot of women, it doesn't seem hard in the modern church to get women to volunteer. Maybe because they have more time, maybe because they have more empathy, they have more passion, I don't know. But then I look at what Paul's ministry, and I think it's just women who stepped up just like you guys did and said, this is what needs to be done. Of course I'm going to do this. It wouldn't, what do you mean I can't do it because I'm a woman?
Right.
Isn't that what you see in the book of Acts?
Yes. I have a question for you, though.
Okay.
Because I think that there is...
what's our numbers? 15 women, 10 men that are on staff.
There you go.
That's pretty crazy.
Well, so I think that as actually a church, a lot of churches are like that. More women volunteer than men. And then to say, well, women can't be in ministry, you would be getting rid of a lot of ministry today in churches. Oh, they're just volunteers. Well, I don't know. You guys are in the position that you're in because you have that passion to do what needed to be done, and you loved God and you love people.
And that's actually what I was going to ask you, because I do know, especially watching you when you went into ministry and you were serving, we both sensed a call of God in our life. And then there was a waiting period of proving out in our life until you were actually ordained as a pastor. And so I do think, there is a difference from not every woman on our staff is maybe called into the fivefold ministry, right?
Right.
So I was just thinking because even for me, I didn't get ordained until much further on after you.
Yeah, well, you got ordained here, didn't you? Or did you?
I got ordained here.
Yes. So.
Yes. So I was just wondering, kind of like how do you determine that? How do you determine a difference between like saying, hey, I see that there's a calling of ministry on your life, and we want to pray over you and anoint you and send you out. Like, what is the difference of that between somebody who is working on a church staff that maybe isn't called to that?
I think it goes back to how you talked about how you got into ministry is the same thing. I became I was just so hungry for God. I just devoured the Word of God. That's all I wanted, and I wanted to serve and do the things that God wanted me to do. There was never a mindset of being in ministry, but that position, the scriptures say your gifts will make room for you.
Yes. That's
exactly what happened. My gifts started to make room for me. And actually in the ministering, that's what caused me to really want to learn, because now I'm teaching young people. And in that, I remember the first few years of it, when I was teaching something to young people or children, I'm learning myself.
Yeah. I'm still in that season where I'm like, hold on, what's this name?
Yes.
What's this thing? Like I'm constantly learning all the things.
So then, just for a little my story, I know we're supposed to talk about women, but then after about 8 years of that, my pastors recognized the calling on my life and ordained me to be a pastor, and I went into full-time ministry. That wasn't the point. That wasn't my goal. I just wanted to do whatever God wanted me to do. I wanted His will in my life, and I would have never thought that would have happened. Actually, years later, when we decided that we were going to plant the church, I didn't have a formal education. I didn't go to Bible college. I went to God's Bible college.
Yes.
I learned the Word. So I thought, well, if you're going to plant a church, people want to go, oh, where'd you go to college? They want to see your degree. So I enrolled in Bible college. Now, the Bible college I was in, because I'd been preaching at that point, I'd been preaching for, 15 years.
Yes.
I could submit on papers that I preached on faith or whatever, so that I was able to take 2 years off. I get credited for 2 years of college. So, but anyway.
You were discipled, though.
I was
You
discipled.
were discipled to be a pastor because they recognized the call way before they prayed over you.
That's what's leading me up to this. What's the difference between being called into, I think you said the fivefold, or just called into ministry? Because everybody's called into ministry.
Yeah,
We all
everybody's
have a
called into ministry.
If you weren't working for the church, you would be doing what you're doing because you've already proved it. You were already helping with students. You got involved in Monte Malele because you had a passion for kids. You volunteered to paint fences for your sorority or put on events because that was who you are. You have a servant gift. You love to help people. So it's going to be an expression of how God made you. So you would be in ministry regardless of whether and I would be too. That's how I ended in ministry. I didn't do it for a job. Same with Darlene. So when it comes to recognizing ministry, the call, obviously, there are people, because you can aspire to be in ministry, but there's got to be a calling too, especially when it's the fivefold ministry: apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, and teacher. I know I didn't do them in order, but there's got to be a call in there, and a lot of times you are depending on other people to recognize that gift in you, whether it comes out through faith, comes out through passion, endurance, maturity. Paul told Timothy, be an example in faith, speech, love, your actions, all of those things. And I have sat and looked at people like you and said, recognized, and it takes a while. That's why Paul said, I know we're getting off track here, but Paul said to know those who labor among you. Don't be quick to lay hands on them. He was talking about leadership. In other words, spend some time serving with people. Let the call become evident to the elders and the leaders in the church, and then let them proclaim, we believe that this person is called. I believe you're called. I believe your husband is called. There are other people in the church I've told that are on staff now, and I've watched them. I remember Whitney, watching her speak and saying, you've got a gift, and now I see a calling, So I think you have to rely on that. But then the question goes, but can women be called into the fivefold?
Yeah.
Obviously, you're in the office of a pastor, so we believe that at the church, and we're going to talk about why we believe that in just a second. Hey, that's the end of this conversation, but not the end. Obviously, we had so much to talk about that we're going to do this in 2 parts. So thanks for tuning in, and then make sure when part 2 drops, you check out my conversation about women in ministry leadership with Pastor Darlene and Jessica Holzapple.